On the 7th of November, 1876, Americans went to the polls to elect the 19th President of the United States. The results came back with Republican President Rutherford Hayes as victor, defeating Democrat Samuel Tilden by one electoral vote. The votes most looked at in this election are from the states of Oregon, South Carolina, Florida, and Louisiana. But the state of Colorado could have been the biggest culprit in the fraud of 1876. First, a little bit of background. The state of Colorado had been added into the Union on August 1st, 1876, 100 years after the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. That's why Colorado is oftentimes referred to as the Centennial State. With an election in just 3 months, Colorado had very little time to prepare for the voting season. Keep that in mind. Colorado had just elected a Republican governor by a 51 to 49% margin and elected a Republican legislature. In fact, the addition of Colorado into the Union was in and of itself a ploy to garner more seats. Republican congressmen knew that the addition of Colorado meant 3 more presidential votes and 2 more in the Senate, all of which likely to go to Republicans. And that needed to happen because Democrats held the majority in the House, but Republicans in the Senate, so Colorado was an important tool for the Republicans. So in 1876, the Republican candidate Rutherford Hayes put campaign resources into the state to help bolster Republican chances, whereas it was overlooked by Democrats due to its low number of votes. Now we're getting into the juicy stuff. When I say election, what does that mean to you? Surely it means the people voting democratically for the representative in question, in this case, President of the United States, the highest office in the land. Right? Surely electing your head of state would entail voting, but not in Colorado, 1876. In the 1876 election, Colorado gave their 3 electoral votes to Republican Rutherford Hayes through their Republican-dominated legislature. This resulted in Rutherford Hayes receiving 50 votes and Tilden receiving 24, and Hayes won with 68% of the legislative vote. The United States Constitution does actually say that legislatures can decide how their electors are chosen, something that I fear may be brought up to the Supreme Court in a couple of years. The Republican-dominated legislature voted to elect its electors through the Republican legislature. They chose to vote this way because due to Colorado's late admission, the state didn't have enough time to organize a free vote. This was not the first time that a state decided to vote like this for president. Florida voted like this in 1868, but everybody knew that Grant would win. This was the closest election in electoral history, with Hayes winning by a single vote. Because of this weird quirk of the rules, the United States ended Reconstruction, almost had a second Civil War, ended Reconstruction, had Congress decide who was president, ended Reconstruction. It would have been different had Hayes won by 50 votes, or even if Tilden had in fact won, but neither of them did. And now Colorado has to be known as a state that kinda sorta rigged the 1876 election. However, in Colorado's defense, South Carolina had 101% turnout with the Hayes victory. How the hell did that happen? To summarize, Colorado was allowed to vote through their state legislature for some weird rule in the Constitution. Did so with their heavily Republican-dominated legislature, and it just so happened that the Republicans won by 1 vote. Colorado didn't vote blue, though, for 20 years until 1896, and Colorado hasn't voted red since 2004. Stick around for next time, where I go over how Connecticut claimed Ohio?